Good morning. I'm Mark Allen with Gaber.io, and I'm here today with Morrisa Sires, the VP of Product at BuildingLink. Good afternoon in your case, Morrisa. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Mark. Glad to be here.
Yeah, how's the weather there today?
It is lovely. I'm a little bit afraid of the global warming, but I will take the 70-degree November days.
Yes, that is
We have
nice.
them.
I remember when I lived on the East Coast, we didn't get too many of those. It was much more common to get snow in November, right?
Exactly.
So to start with, can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started off my career actually after majoring in comparative literature and doing internships in journalism and publishing. I decided I did not want to do that. So my last internship in college, first job out of college, was really in customer support and account management in startups.
Hmm.
And I did that for about a year and a half before moving from New York to Silicon Valley, where I got my first taste of Silicon Valley startups and first transition from client services into product. And I did that through beta rollouts at a couple of companies where I got to work really closely with product and engineering, managing the clients, trying out a new product, figuring out how we could optimize and iterate and get to general availability. And at a company called Gigia, I worked my way up from client services manager through kind of a product strategy role, which is a very non-modern way of managing product, where I was much more of the outbound discovery prioritization. And I passed off that work to a technical product team that was managing the delivery. And later on, I was promoted into the VP role to own all sides of this. And so spent a lot of time up leveling the team that was in Israel, where we didn't have clients and we didn't have any client services team members, although we got a couple over the years, and really got them to be comfortable getting in front of customers and kind of doing their own discovery and figuring out what they should build. Most recently, I have come to BuildingLink, as you mentioned. I've been here about 3 months, and we are undergoing our own product transformation and becoming product-led for the first time.
Wow, that's quite a journey there. Starting as, is it a journalism or major? Was it you said?
Comparative literature.
Comparative literature to VP of product. That is a very unique career path. So, what has been your experience with remote employment, both as an employee and now as a VP?
Yeah, so when I was at that company, Gigia, for my first 2.5 years, I was based in Silicon Valley at headquarters. And after 2.5 years, I moved back to New York and spent the next 4 years working remotely for Gigia, where most of my team was in Israel and part of my team was in California. So it was remote for a company that was neither remote nor distributed. We had, a few hubs, but I did that when I first moved. For about 9 months, I worked from home. And then I came to our CEO and I said, I can't do this anymore. We need to figure out a solution where I don't work from my kitchen. And so from there, I had an experience over the next 3 years or so trying out different office and co-working options. And so I first worked at First Round Capital, which was one of our investors, and just they had portfolio companies in their office. So I did that. I worked at a local New York co-working space called The Yard. And then for my last year, we did have a New York office with Gigia at a WeWork, but it was only me and one other colleague whoever went in. So since then, I have tried to go the other way and work for companies that are local in New York. I've been mildly successful at that, but of course, for the past 8 months or so, it doesn't matter where I am or where my team is. So I would say that being forced back into remote work, even though I wouldn't have chosen it, I do have a lot of experience with it. And because there is no choice, it makes it a little bit easier to stomach. So not unfamiliar with leading a team and driving collaboration. And certainly there are so many more tools now to enable that collaboration than there were when I last did this 3+ years ago.
Interesting. So can you tell us why you prefer going into an office? Most people are the opposite. They're kind of enjoying this new trend.
I mean, I think there's not everybody loves work from home. There's just the encounters that you don't have to plan for. It's just being around the team. You want to bounce ideas. You can do that a lot more easily when you can just turn around and chat with somebody. Obviously, Slack makes that easier. When I did this last time, we had Google Hangouts was like the only way that we chatted, and Zoom was not ubiquitous and people weren't used to video calls. So it wasn't like I saw my team all the time, which we do a much better job of today. But yeah, I like to be around people and to have conversations, and so it's a nice balance. I don't necessarily need to go in every day, but now I'm at a company where I've been here 3 months and my teammates only have this much body, and maybe they have legs, maybe they don't, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Interesting that on that note, I've met someone that only see me in this little box too.
Yeah.
And the first time we met in person, she goes, "I thought you were much shorter." I'm like, "Really?" So I think I have to do something with my setting
There
here.
you go.
And how many people are in BuildingLink in New York, or located in New York? How many employees?
That is a good question. We have a bit over 100 people. Most of them are in New York, but we have distributed sales, and then we have hubs in both Canada and Atlanta.
Very good. Cool. So what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think can be done differently to make it more effective?
Yeah, it's a good question. Also, prior to BuildingLink, I skipped over working at HANA, which is a flex workspace company. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of CBRE and is precisely in this world of both having offices for large enterprises and full teams, but then obviously co-working has been targeted at people who are remote workers. So I have done quite a bit of research in terms of who remote workers are and the types of industries they work in and where they like to work. The vast majority like to work from home. And, if your company isn't investing in you to have a co-working space, you're probably not investing in yourself. My take on remote working has always been that it's better when you are distributed, where everybody is remote and there's no headquarters, because communication and information asymmetry are so difficult to manage, even when you are co-located. So if you have people who have more access to information being at HQ, and then you have some people who just happen to work elsewhere, those people are at a disadvantage. So I do think that this kind of global egalitarian, everybody is equally remote from everybody else, is a much better overall system. I think what will change is if companies really can cut down on their real estate costs and they really are just enabling this remote work, because clearly it's successful. Like, if you're not succeeding in the duration of time that this has been forced upon us, then you're not going to last very long as a business. So businesses can and should, and some are investing more in ergonomic solutions for home offices and just doing more for people to have a better homework environment so that they can be as successful as possible doing the work that they need to do without all of the resources they may have been used to in an office setting.
Very interesting. So why don't you tell us about BuildingLink? What is your base product? Who's your target audience? All those things.
Yeah, so we are a property management software for residential buildings. So property managers and maintenance workers and front desk staff at condos and co-ops and rental buildings across the country and really across the world are using our software to make their daily lives better. It is interesting, when I was in Silicon Valley, it was very much B2B SaaS for companies that are used to technology. And now we are in a world where our target demographic is very not used to technology. And so, when the company was born 20 years ago, there weren't even necessarily computers in buildings. So you can imagine it was a pretty slow ramp up. Now it's not quite like that, but you have building staff that's often an older demographic. You have residents who are often an older demographic. And so there's a lot of designing for those challenges and for the breadth of people, because it's just, people who live in the world can be our customers and the staff working in our buildings.
So interestingly, your industry, and basically your users manage apartment complexes, I'm assuming, right? Mm-hmm. Is there any thought, since you're the product manager, of them becoming somewhat like the WeWorks or the dedicating some of those places to co-working spaces?
Yes, absolutely. And that's definitely been a trend, even pre-COVID, and obviously earlier in COVID, all of those spaces would have been shut down. but it is an amenity. So as buildings get to a certain size and a certain level of luxury, they are dedicating these different spaces, everything from movie theaters within the building to guest rooms that you can rent out to people who are coming to visit you, and co-working spaces as well. So a big part of the BuildingLink platform is also that ability to reserve those types of amenities, and designate your desks so that you can go there to work. And that also, amenities use within our platform has surged during COVID because there were certain things where it was more free for all. And now it's super critical that people are making reservations so that you can restrict how many people are using a given space at a given time.
Because I think that's one of the biggest problems with people in apartments now that are working from home. It's a cramped space. And if you, instead of driving somewhere, you just like go to 2 buildings over and work and have more work-like atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially in New York, I have the luxury that this is a room that is not my bedroom, although people who know me know that I've spent quite a bit of time working from that space of the house as well. But others, if you have 2 people working from home, immediately your space just isn't big enough for that. And so, yes, having space within your building or shared amenities with neighboring buildings is a really big plus.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I'm not actually by the ocean. I'm actually at my dining room table. So the ongoing pandemic forced everybody to go remote. You've done it and you've not done it. I mean, you've kind of like jumped all over the place in this scenario. Did that cause any problems for you in particular, or for BuildingLink, once everyone had to go remote?
So I came in July, and so I came into a team that was already remote. So I've never met them before. Their faces are this big, and whatever if they have the rest of their body, I'll find out in the future. But so it's interesting because I kind of came into that, and so there are a lot of conversations around work from home and adjustments and all of these things that I haven't had with my BuildingLink team. And sometimes it occurs to me that just because they've been doing it for a long time doesn't mean it's easy for everybody, and doesn't mean everybody is like comfortable or as productive as usual. So I should probably be having those conversations, but this is just our status quo from day one.
Wow, and I assume then that you interviewed and all that stuff completely remote. You never actually went into their office, correct?
Correct. I have been to the office once now. One colleague did kind of show me around, so it does exist. There is a physical space, for better or worse, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, and so you do know that at least one of your colleagues does have
Yes, she did have all of the body parts.
So, well, finally, there's companies like Gabriel that help develop, build, and scale products for startups. You're really not a startup. You're like an experienced company, but you're kind of going into that startup mode, it sounds like, since you're revamping the product, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how important do you think services like this are going to be going forward for companies like yourself?
Yeah, I think that is really interesting because, I think when everybody isn't co-located, then there are all these different ways that you can staff out your team. And I think there's probably going to be more of an equal playing field for like service operators versus hiring internally and all of these things, because the concept of working for a company is changing. And when I came in, there was a product consultancy that was helping lead a transformation within BuildingLink, and they helped with my hire. And I think having that kind of external expertise, especially at BuildingLink, so I'm a little kind of jaded, not jaded, but biased by the current environment that I'm in. But there is this reliance on external experts who have done this before, who can really help you get moving faster and kind of multiply your team.
Very interesting. Well, Morrisa, I want to thank you for your time today. It's been really interesting talking to you, and you're in a unique industry. It's kind of interesting to see what products you will design going forward, because it really is affecting your products, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing it. So have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Actually, have a great weekend.